Testing. What's up, learning community? How you guys doing? So my research is different. I'm an artist and an activist, so I'm going to tell you some stories today. So it's going to feel a little weird, but just roll with me, all right? We rolling? All right.
These stories live in the music. La musica, Afrobeat, funky jazz, djembe rhythms, music is always on the borders. The body dances to its own rhythm, hips that hop, lips beatbox, negotiating for you in a pattern of kickball change, negotiate, spin, negotiate, undulation of pelvis and rib cage, negotiated, the body becomes asymmetrical in movement. The body bends asymmetrical in recognition. The body does not always know the language calling it, but the body can feel the spirits that beckon with labels. Home, away, negotiate, foreign, black, weird, negotiate, awkward, here, beautiful, negotiate, come. Come into the labels that call you. You are what your body answers to.
As a child, I told people I was a mutt. Much like the music that pushes my body to its rhythms, I am a cultural hybrid situated within a strategic rhetoric designed to integrate and control. Bits and pieces of that come together on my skin. Society expects the pieces to fit together nicely or risk being discarded. Labeled puzzle pieces, paint by numbers. What happens when the pieces just don't fit? We negotiate them into their too tight, too round, too square, too large, too rigid spaces, changing both our piece and the pieces we fit into. Intersectionality is a theory that suggests that we cannot separate our identities. All of our social identities interact in the single body. So if you were to ask me, what's more important, Amber, being black or being a woman? I can't answer that because I don't know what it's like to be black without being a woman, and I don't know what it's like to be a woman without being black. Identities are not neat. We do not fit perfect into perfect boxes assigned to us by society or adopted by us because we like them. No, identities are messy social constructions that force people to pretend to fit perfectly. And that process of pretending is called negotiation. It's not about lying, but about becoming what society tells us we should be. So today I'm going to share with you two stories. They're both about negotiating identity. But the stories that I'm telling you are about interrupting, not necessarily accepting, revealing, not covering, and creating possibility instead of resolve. So I don't actually have any answers for you, but I do want you to think. So the first story I'm going to share is about my father and the label Puerto Rican. And the second story is about my first trip abroad to Ghana, West Africa, as a St. Louis University student, just like you all. So we're going to begin with my dad.
Most people call me Woody, and many of my friends call me Mario. I was born in Woodruff Woods. My mother changed my name after she got remarried when I was 4. She changed it of her own accord. So I grew up with the notion that it's okay to change one's name, if one so chooses. I still have that notion, by the way. Oh, you're wondering about the Mario part. Most people don't know this, but I added Mario to my name sometime in the early to mid-'80s. I have always loved Afro-Cuban rhythms. It was fascinating to envision black and brown drummers and other musicians playing hypnotic beats that compelled me to move, to beat on something, to dance, as early as I can remember. I became a percussionist at about my junior year in high school. I've always loved things like that, and in fact always thought that I had long-lost Puerto Rican family members. In some ways, I wanted to live somewhere else, do something else, and be somebody else as I grew up. Not exactly rejecting all that I was. As it stands, I like myself, but I just wanted more. What that means is that although I enjoyed my life, I still entertained fantasies of more. more flavor, more excitement, more experiences, more. This has led to much cognitive dissonance over the years.
Growing up black and in Los Angeles and the offspring of Woody Johnson, my father, meant wanting to be something more. My siblings and I created fairy tales. My younger brother would tell people he was mixed with something, sometimes Indian, Mexican, Native American, Middle Eastern, Ethiopian, he could blend. We adopted him when he was 2. His birth mother was black. Father, race, origin unknown, got her pregnant and ran. My little brother, who could blend in with over 100 different countries, was adopted by a black family, so he's black now. But he tells people he's white. I correct him from time to time as if that's my place, and either way, it makes him feel like more. Now my older brother, he used to tell people he was from Compton. That made him gangster. It didn't matter the occasion. If some kid asked him, yo, where you from? He's like, yo, I'm coming straight out of Compton. We were not from Compton. So my father told me, mind you, just me, not my big brother or my little brother, just me, that we were Puerto Rican, exotic, more. 4 years old. The first time I remember seeing my father, he was spanking his palms and pouring sweat over 3 congas, slapping drums, shaking checkers, making beautiful Latin music in Fisherman's Wharf, Marina del Rey, California. I saw my reflection in his shiny, smooth, wavy black hair glistening underneath the hot sun. Daddy was cool as shit. We packed our bodies into his big boat of a Mercedes and floated off into the sunset with an entire percussion set in the backseat and trunk. This was the life, and he labeled it Puerto Rican. My young mind didn't think to question him. Since when did Puerto Ricans grow up in St. Louis? How come nobody else talks about this exotic identity? Instead, I learned to embrace my Puerto Rican blood when I went to college. I started to learn about Puerto Rico. Oh! I visited a handful of times, learning that the Latin boys love my hybrid Trajeño and black skin. I stood in solidarity, fighting for representation, voice when an American government denied Puerto Rico. Oh! I immersed myself in a Puerto Rican lover and became his Puerto Rican. Oh, I embraced this part of me. La sangre de Mestiza, mixed blood boiling in my body, pushing me towards percussion and salsa dancing. I reread Gloria Anzaldúa and felt a connection in language. I learned Spanish, bomba, Puerto Rican hip-hop. I swam on the shores of Loiza, bought off pregnancy test in Old San Juan, and found out I was pregnant with brown sugar in Isla Verde. Cultural memories of a Puerto Rico. Oh! Then my father was diagnosed with Parkinson's. At 30 years old, I did what us communication scholars do. I suggested we write a paper about it. So we began the writing process just telling stories. I would write a story, send it to him, he'd respond, and we would go back and forth. Our first story went exactly like this.
He goes by Mario.
Actually, some call me Mario, most call me Woody.
Possibly channeling some of the Puerto Rican blood he claims fills his veins with exotic swag.
I've been a Latin lover all my life. I do regret entangling you in my delusions, though. I said so much to myself that I actually believed that my dad, my biological dad, has some roots in Puerto Rico. And I still don't know that he does.
26 years later, I met my dad when I was 4. 26 years passed, and he said that to me. He admits to the unknown. Is it a delusion, being Puerto Rican? Is he still holding on? I read those words, reread those words, reread those words more. I watched my father grasping a culture he wishes was his 100%. I watched the cognitive dissonance written on his skin. Being Puerto Rican meant a lot to him. It meant more. It meant home. And now I have asked him to confront that story using words like claim. I forced my father to negotiate with a keyboard. I still don't know that he doesn't. Damn, I am no Puerto Rican hoe. Just a black girl from Los Angeles trying to be more. Being Puerto Rican for my father has everything to do with race, nationality, fetishizing identity, and not feeling like enough. So as a black person growing up in America, where we're constantly told we're second-class citizens and we're not as good as white people, you can create these stories to try to fantasize a life where you become better. Whether it's by educating yourself and getting this great job and having the perfect family and fulfilling the American dream, you get to be considered more. And a lot of that has to do with potentially having white blood in your body, right? So being a mixed race person also might make you more. And so growing up with these ideas, I had very interesting conceptions about what it meant to be a black person. But when I went to Ghana for the first time, it disrupted all of that. So it's August 2002. I'm a graduate student in communication taking an international social work class. And on this class, we're going to go to Ghana for 2 weeks and look at how organizations in Ghana are conducting their social activism grassroots work. So we have a 22-hour plane ride from St. Louis to Amsterdam and into Ghana. The plane ride equals orientation, which equals a bunch of fear. I was prepped to fear Africa since I learned to read elementary textbooks where they talked about those Africans, how they dismissed an entire continent as if it were a country full of uncivilized, barbaric savages. As a SLU student in my international social work class, I was coached to fear Africa once again as we began taking steps towards our journey abroad. I was told to fear the Africans during that plane ride, my mind oriented to fear, my body organic, unafraid, anticipating something different. I step off the plane. My feet touch dusty gold soil. Home is chanting in my ear somewhere in the distant horizon. Close enough to hear, too far to pinpoint a location, I sense nostalgia, even over the warning signs, even over the fact that I've never been out of America before. Close enough, oh no, the warning signs. These people are relentless. They will beg you for money. If you give it to one person, the rest will flock to you and follow. Keep your possessions close, your money closer. I walk out of customs and into the warm air. Home. I see familiar faces. Home. I am not afraid. My mind tells me that I should be, though. My body is in Ghana. My mind is in America. I feel like I am home more than any other place I have ever been, including America, which creates an awkward feeling of displacement and dis-ease because my conscience is telling me I am not home. I am in their foreign. I'm in their backyard. They are different. But I'm on their soil. They're not supposed to be here. But I'm the visitor. No, you are owner. I want to love you. Be afraid. I want to touch you. Run from their disease. I want to laugh with you under golden hues lining the sky with purple majesty. You cannot love them and be an American. Yes, I can. I'm their visitor. No, you are owner. Damn, what have they done? They say our superconscious mind holds all the information, a collective memory of our existence as collective people, not as individuals. What Gloria Anzaldúa calls the sum total of my reincarnations. My trip to Ghana speaks to those reincarnations and the sum total of people I once belonged to, possibly, but stripped from during slavery, however temporarily. But I think my superconscious mind remembers. While I was in Ghana, I got two very different reactions from people. So most of the people in a crowd in Main City would come up to me and say, "Are you white?" "No." "Is your mother white?" "No." "Is your father white?" "No." "So your mother's white?" "No." "So your father's white?" "No." "Then what are you mixed with?" My response, black and blacker. Most people just laughed at me, looked at me sideways, but I learned that race is about skin, right? What you see, not about the stories that you tell. The other reaction was really different. As we traveled further away from Accra, people began to tell me who I was. They'd say, "You are Ashanti, your people are Ashanti, you look just like them." So we visited an Ashanti village in Kumasi. I'm amazed at how many family members I see in this space, people that look just like me, my mother, my siblings, my great-grandmother Jessie. I feel at home while still feeling displaced and a certain dis-ease. They don't know me. They don't look at me the way my family looks at me. To feel home and not feel recognized is a difficult feeling. I want them to call me by my name and recognize me the way I recognize them. Instead, they called me a Bruni. A Bruni means white person in Ghana. So in their eyes, I'm white, but also relative. I learned to see myself as white for the very first time. They treated me differently. I can trace my actual whiteness twice. My great-grandmother Mimi was a French woman who fell in love with a black man, so her family ostracized her. She moved to Chicago and gave birth to my mother's father. My other great-great-grandmother was raped by her slave master. My grandmother's skin and features remain evident of that lineage. She can pass for white, but she chooses not to. She married a very dark-skinned black man and birthed 5 children. My father was birthed from that marriage by a before that marriage by a lighter-skinned black man in New York City. So technically I am white, if only in really small doses. But my story paints a different picture. I grew up in Inglewood, California. Y'all know where Inglewood is? It's Inglewood and Compton are very close to each other. They're the birthplace of gangster rap, okay? So I grew up around a whole lot of black people. Black neighborhoods, black friends, black music, black food, police brutality, racism, all the blackness. So I've been called black my entire life. And the few people who didn't think I was completely black would just ask me, what are you mixed with? But this question is significant because it somehow signifies that I was better than the black people who weren't mixed. For instance, back in America, an older white woman came up to me and asked me what I was mixed with, and I always say black and blacker. And she told me I was too pretty to be just black. So in America, being mixed with white was an automatic more, right? It made you better. But in Ghana, where I felt my whiteness for the first time, it had a very, very different effect. The clearest illustration of that occurs when I visit Elmina Slave Castle. The emotion and spirit I feel as I walk through two tight tunnels into slave quarters overwhelms me. I brush my hands against the concrete slab once littered with over thousands of black, beautiful Ghanaian women in their menstrual blood, feces, urine, and sickness. A balcony stretches 2 stories above, overlooking the concrete. A slave master once stood on that balcony, beckoning his women for the evening, every single night. He rapes a woman who has been sleeping in her menstrual blood, feces, and urine. My heart is heavy. I walk through the point of no return, 1.5 foot wide gate, 5 steps from the ocean where small boats dock to carry Ghanaians to ships destined to cross the Atlantic Ocean into slavery. I rub my fingers along silent walls that carry the heavy burden of whips that beat, of hunger, of disease. I hold back my tears. This castle does not need my tears. As we gather our things to leave, we step through a gift shop. A gift shop at the entrance of a slave castle. A gift shop. I notice a bright yellow t-shirt that has the words from the dungeon plaque written across the back. It reads, "An everlasting memory of the anguish of our ancestors. May those who died rest in peace. May those who return find their roots. May humanity never again perpetrate such injustice against humanity. We, the living, vow to uphold this." I lose it. Writing these words, I lose it again. Humanity broke that promise, and that's why we have things like Black Lives Matter today. To return is to come full circle, to meet in the corner, in the center, and bring together the loose ends of experience. I have the master's blood in me, a Bruni. The Ghanaians and their questions spotted him in my skin. Perhaps the same man who stood hovering over the balcony choosing which woman to rape that evening. I am him. I am her too. I was raped at the tender age of 18. I know how she feels. I am the American who was taught to fear Africa, to be overprotective of my stuff, but I'm also the descendant of slaves, my roots connected to a tree branch in Kumasi, home chanting louder in my ear. I am remembering my roots in the center. I am home. I box with myself. I don't want to be white. I don't want to be American. I don't want to be a slave. I don't want to be raped, but I do want to feel whole again. Walking through Elmina Slave Castle, being more suddenly shifted. White became bad, an identity associated with such heinous acts that I felt repulsed, mortified, angry, and hurt. It was no longer more. Being a rape survivor, a black woman who descends from those amazing women that survived, meant more in that moment. How does one accept the more without refusing the more? We negotiate. We live and breathe in the contradictions of identity. Our intersections make our lives messy. We learn to accept and dismiss parts of us simultaneously, which is an act of negotiation. The process of negotiating national and racial identity with my father was a very slow and mysterious one. My father never fully explained the lineage to me, and I never asked him to. It was seldom spoken of, and when he did speak of it, it was usually short and not very descriptive. Thus, the negotiation happened internally. Because of that, I don't think I ever fully believed my father, but I wanted to. I started to learn the culture, speak the language, immerse myself. However, I never told anyone I was Puerto Rican, thank God, because I'd have to go back and tell all those people 26 years later I wasn't. This connects to my story about visiting a country that I have no proof of connection to outside of slavery folktales and what it felt like when I stepped foot into that country. Despite not having proof, though, I feel connected to Ghana in ways that I can never explain. And at this point in my life, that was the first country I traveled to. I've been to 37 now, and no country has ever felt the way God felt. So Puerto Rican might not have felt right rolling off my tongue the way Ashanti did, or the way it felt for my father. And to this day, I still don't know in my conscious mind if I am Ashanti or if my ancestors ever passed through a slave castle. So who's right? Whose story is more credible, my father's or mine? Am I any different than my father? I don't know. But I do think the body knows better than the conscious mind, and that the body gravitates when it is called. The drums called me home long before my father did. Uh-oh. I don't know what happened there. I always have technical difficulties when I get talks, by the way. It's a good thing I have a sense of humor. Just go to the very last. Thank you. You guys recognize that song? When I was 13, my father began teaching me to play percussion. I love the congas, but I crave the djembe. The djembe is a Ghanaian drum. It's in this moment that I see our non-existent conversations of nationality grow roots and fester. Even though my father and I never negotiated our nationalities actively, we shifted around discussions of drums as if we were. So when I would visit, I'd play Santana. He would spend hours teaching me the salsa dance and explaining to me the origin of the congas and the great history of the shekere, blah, blah, blah. I would steer our conversation towards the djembe. I wanted to talk about what I was learning in my djembe class. He would listen, but he'd always maneuver back to the congas. In those moments, I didn't mind though. I loved all the drums just like I loved the fantasy of being Puerto Rican. So it was a constant tug of war that we both felt safe talking about. Save for the blood spilling from cracked palms. That's what happens when you play the drums for a long time. Bloodlines were not in question. It was literally just a debate of aesthetics. And drum aesthetics are easier to swallow than the aesthetics of cultural identity. We don't have to prove lineage. We only have to love the drums. He finally gave in to my desires and bought me my first djembe when I was headed to college after 5 years of trying to convince me to play the congas. He bought my first drum right on the corner in North St. Louis at Grand and Natural Bridge. The intricately carved dinker cymbals and hairy drum head beckoned me. I love that drum, and it loves me. Splitting my palms wide open, cracked skin, dripping blood, mixing with the story of drum masters past, I ask, how do we choose our lineage? Thank you.